Have you ever wondered why some people are able to amass tremendous amounts of wealth and other people stay stuck being poor their entire life? Well, not surprisingly, they have entirely different thought processes when it comes to money, and we're going to talk about 10 of them today. And I think the reason why this is such an important perspective to have is because I spent the first 13 years of my working career around poor people, and the last 10 years of my life around some of the most wealthy people in the entire world. And the biggest contrast that I have found between the first 13 years and the last 10 years is the way that they think. And it might not seem like a huge difference, and I bet you are going to be surprised of a bunch of these. And you might even have some of these poor thought processes when it comes to money, and maybe that's why you continue to struggle. And we're gonna start the first one off with a banger. It's that average people believe that money is evil, whereas rich people believe that the lack of money is evil. And I can entirely relate to this. Although I was a hard worker, I didn't have a hard time making money, I wasn't able to make or amass money the way that the wealthy were. And so the people that I was around constantly blamed everything on wealthy people. It was something that I learned from my peer group. I learned it from the movies I watched. When was the last time that you watched a movie where the person who was committing all the terrible things wasn't a wealthy Christian, or wasn't wealthy or wasn't Christian? Like, that always seems to be the go-to for almost every movie that's out there. So of course we get indoctrinated into believing that. However, I think if we took a realistic look about it, we would find that evil is everywhere. And if you've been watching the news for the last 3 years, like everybody has, you will probably find lots of poor people who did some pretty evil stuff. And when you really start to understand this relationship, you'll understand that whether or not they have money, people can do some pretty awful things to other people. But what's interesting is when we start to relate it to other things in our life, it no longer becomes evil. Let me give you a couple examples. So it takes money to buy a car, yes? Okay, so you take that $40,000 or $50,000, you buy a car. Is the car evil? Well, it costs money, so why isn't it evil? When you go to the grocery store and you put food in your fridge, is that evil? It costs money. What about your shelter, the place that you live? That costs money. Is it evil? So when we really start to take these things into a different perspective that we've been taught from society, you'll start to understand that money is a tool, it's a resource, it provides opportunity. But if you believe that money is evil, what happens is people will subconsciously get rid of it. They have no money because they're trying to be a good person. They feel that by getting rid of it somehow makes them good. However, they always have to ask other people for money. They always need help. They can't pay their bills back. And yet somehow that is to the glory of God, I guess. Which leads into number 2, in that average people believe that being selfish is a vice, that it's a bad thing. Whereas rich people believe that being selfish is actually a good thing. And you can't turn on the news today, to go back to talking about the news, you can't turn it on without hearing something about social programs and how helping each other and taking care of these things, and we should have the government paying for more stuff. But the challenge is, in this thought process, and I used to believe this, that, well, if you take care of me, I will help take care of you. And that seems like such a noble cause, but here's the challenge. When people are taking care of you, if you think about the way the government takes care of our veterans, if you think about the way the government takes care of our people on Social Security, if you think of the way the government takes care of the people that it should take care of, how come it doesn't do a very good job? How come when somebody else is designing your life, they don't care much for it? They don't set very high expectations. However, you probably treat that a little bit differently within yourself. You've probably tried to do this in relationships where you're trying to always take care of the other person and both of you are broken and you're trying to give stuff that you don't have. That relationship doesn't last very long. versus the opposite side of that. You say, I'll take care of me so that you don't have to take care of me. I'm going to take care of me for you, and you take care of you for me. And that has an entirely different perspective and thought process for it, in that everybody works in their own right to take care of themselves. Now, does that mean we don't need to help other people sometimes? Absolutely, but that's not what's happening. For the vast majority of people that are able to work and are for some reason still getting help, that's an entirely different topic for another day. But change that thought process to, I'm going to take care of me, I'm going to take care of my family, I'm going to take care of what I have to take care of so I don't have to be a burden to everybody else. And if everybody thought that way, then most people wouldn't be burdens. And the reason why that's so important is because when you can take care of yourself, when you have enough to do that, you're also able to give when people need help. And I think a lot of this happens because number 3, and I bet you've probably already found some of these thoughts in yourself, but you just wait for the last 8 that we have. I think these are going to blow your mind, and it's going to change your perspective of how you handle money. And number 3 is that average people generally set very low expectations for their life. Whereas rich people are expecting challenges. They expect things to be hard, that if they want to get something good, they're gonna have to work hard for it. Now, unfortunately, most people expect to fail, but they hope to win. They already know that they're going to lose at life, but they're hoping by some miracle, something magical is going to happen that's going to get them to the finish line, that's going to take them to the promised land. But because they don't believe in themselves, they don't believe that they can win, they set their expectations extremely low. I have a great example of this. As I started growing in my own faith and I started walking in my own life and building a business, I started getting to this place where I was around people who were creating business plans and deciding what they wanted to do for their life, that what they were going to do with their faith and with their family and their finances, their fitness, their fun. They had all of this stuff mapped out in their life. And so I'm talking to some of my friends as I'm working on these things, and I'm like, I thought everybody did it. And I'm asking them, like, well, what is your goal for this year? What is your goal? What are you going to accomplish? And the reply I got back was, well, I don't know, probably don't die. And that's the level of expectation that average people have for themselves, where the wealthy set expectations for themselves in every category of their life that they want to get better. And because they don't have big expectations for their life, average people would actually prefer to be entertained than they would to actually be educated and to learn something. Whereas the rich would actually rather learn something and become educated than they would to be entertained. And we see this all over the place, and you can look at this through the course of history. The reason why, if you ever watched the movie The Gladiator, it's not factually true at all, but there are some things that happen in there that are somewhat actually relatable, and that Caesar at the time was putting on all of these things to distract the people. And people were so easily distracted, whether it's watching TV or it's watching sports or it's playing video games. It's so easy to get people distracted today. Why? Because they don't have really big goals for their life. We're seeing this huge push for people wanting to work 3 and 4 days a week. The challenge with that is you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get good at that. It's not even biblical. Whereas simultaneously, the rich are educating themselves. They're working hard. They're putting in effort. They're realizing that it's more important to invest in themselves than it is to be entertained. And then they work 6 days, 7 days a week. So no wonder why there's this separation between people who don't believe they're going to ever accomplish anything. They set no goals, and they want to work 3 or 4 days a week because they hate what they do, versus the person who's passionate about what they do and they're going to work 6 and 7 days a week and they're learning and they're growing and they're doing better. Of course there's going to be a separation in income for that. That's just logical to understand. And that's probably why you're here. So if you haven't already, make sure you smash that like button, hit the subscribe, hit the bell so that way you can see when additional content comes out. And don't forget to also click the link down below that if you want to do better financially, let's schedule a call together. I can send some resources your way. And I think you'll be surprised when you actually start setting some financial goals in your life, how much you'll realize of the other things that you want to do. There's so many times that I'm working with somebody and we're going through their financial goals and they start to realize what they want to do with their life, whether they want to get good at photography or they want to have kids or they want to have a home or they want to travel the world, whatever it might be that's not necessarily financially related but that takes money to do it. They start to realize what they actually want out of life. It's such a great exercise to do, and I promise you it will not only change your perspective, but it will change the direction of your life. And number 5, average people seek comfort, whereas rich people actually become comfortable in uncertainty. And you see this oftentimes because they don't have big goals for their life, they're not putting in the time and effort. The challenge is average people get opportunities in front of them, but they don't know how to execute and they don't have the ability to execute, and they would rather be watching TV than putting effort into something, because remember, their belief system is, well, it's not going to be successful anyway, so why should I even try? So I'd rather just be entertained and I'd rather be comfortable. They are the ones that would rather sit in their home drinking a beer, yelling at the person who's actually in the arena, who's actually competing, and they're telling them how stupid they are while they're the ones sitting at home wearing another man's jersey. Whereas rich people, because they're excited to learn and they want to do new things and they're willing to work hard, they're able to see an opportunity and excel at it because they're used to being uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to do something new. It's uncomfortable to look at your life differently. It's uncomfortable to set goals and to strive for something and not hit it, and then to struggle and try to figure out what you need to change in your life and what's going wrong in your head and why do you do the things that you do. All of that is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to look into the mirror and analyze why you're not doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, but they learn how to live in that discomfort. They learn how to thrive in it. So when things happen in their life, they are able to handle it because they're used to striving in uncertainty. These people fear being the same year after year after year more than they do actually working towards making their life better. And number 6, what a big shocker. Average people would rather try to gamble and scheme to try to get ahead, versus rich people know that they have to put in the action. So since they think they're going to fail anyway, since they would rather be comfortable, they don't want to spend time being educated, they don't want to put in the work, what they're trying to do is always find all of these schemes and these quick ways to be able to get rich. The challenge is they never work out. They're chasing fads and cryptos and NFTs and all of these things. And it's not that that can't work for somebody, but if you have no experience, you're not willing to put in the effort to learn about it, what chances do you have of actually hitting it big? Versus rich people know that it takes action. They're going to learn how to do things by doing it. They're going to run into a problem and then figure it out. They're not going to try to know everything before they take any steps. And since they prefer to learn versus being entertained, and they prefer to work versus not doing anything, and they prefer uncertainty, well, they might not prefer it, but they know how to thrive in it. They know that success is just a matter of time and effort, and they're willing to put in that effort. And I think oftentimes because of that list previously, even if somebody who is average person, even if they hit the lottery, even if they do by a minute chance somehow get a chance at success, the challenge is they don't know how to handle it. It's why we love those stories of people who make hundreds of millions of dollars on the lottery, but within a couple years they're broke again. Why? Because they didn't just develop themselves along the way. If you can't handle $100,000 a year right now, how are you going to handle hundreds of millions of dollars? And then the other sign is number 7, that average people believe in formal education, whereas rich people believe in acquiring specific skills. And you'll see this so many times. I've worked with so many people who have this same thought process. So they're 30 some odd years old now, they've been working, they don't use their previous degree for anything that they're doing now, but somehow they have this thought process that if they waste another 4 years on school and they get another $100,000 into debt, that somehow that degree on the wall is going to get them the job that they want, versus spending those 4 years actually working on themselves and developing a specific skill like the rich do. And the challenge with that is by the time they get their degree, things have changed so much that their degree is basically worthless. They've spent 4 years of not making any extra money. They spent 4 years getting into debt. And now they're starting off $100,000 and 4 years older than if they would have started before. But remember, they want what's comfortable. They want to be entertained. You get entertained when you go to school, you don't get educated. So the challenge is they've wasted all of this time and money instead of being able to get ahead, instead of taking an apprenticeship or finding somebody who's willing to train you in the industry that you want to be in. And what you'll do by doing that is you'll actually learn how to do it. You'll actually start making some money. You'll learn if it's for you or not instead of investing 4 years to find out it's not for you and hundreds of thousands of dollars. The crazy part is you'll actually make money instead of losing money. But the challenge is, if we go back to previous ones, they don't want action. They don't want to actually do the work because they don't want to be uncomfortable. So they're going to do what's comfortable. Sitting in a classroom, listening to somebody lecture is way more comfortable than it is to actually go out and do it. And number 8, because they have all this extra time, average people are often relishing in the past, whereas rich people are looking for and believing in the future. And you can tell this by your group. This is one of the biggest indicators of the people that you're around, the people that you're surrounded by. Are they always talking about those glory days? What's interesting, if you really digest this, they're thinking about the past. Why? Because those were the best days of their life. They know that the best times that they had were before them, but it's even more specific than that. It was the past when they actually were fearless and put in the effort to do something, that they were willing to be uncertain, they were willing to try, they put in this effort to get their degree or do something big in sports or do something cool in their life, to date somebody. All of that time where they had to put in this effort and the unknown is actually what they're striving for, but they're unwilling to do it again. Whereas rich people understand that the best part of their life has yet to come. That because they're willing to invest the time and the energy and live in the uncertainty, that they know that their life is going to get better. Why? Because they're investing the time and energy for their skills to grow and compound, for their income to grow and compound. And because of that, their life is going to trend for the better. Whereas other people, the average people, are looking how they used to do something great and now life is never going to be the way they want it to. Why? Because they're no longer growing, because they're no longer willing to put in that effort. They're no longer learning. They realize the rest of their life is never going to get better. Why? Because they're unwilling to get better. Number 9, and if you haven't hit the like button by now, and I haven't earned it, there's something wrong. You need to smash that like button and hit the subscribe while you're there as well. So number 9, average see money emotionally, whereas the rich see money logically. And you can see this anytime that somebody who's rich does some kind of investment for the poor or to help people or some kind of donation. They always say, well, they should have given more. Well, they could have done this. Why did they buy that thing? Why did they buy that Ferrari? They could have given that $200,000 or that $500,000 to the poor. Not understanding and not actually being able to see the full picture of what that provides for the economy. How many jobs did that Ferrari create? How many people got paid on the transportation and the building and the fueling and the paint and everything else? But somehow if they just gave that money to everybody else, somehow that's going to fix things. As many people as I've given money to, it has never fixed anything. It has never actually made their life better. Why? Because of all these things that we talked about previously. They weren't willing to change their life, so their life isn't going to change. And giving them money actually just takes away the pain from them not wanting to change their life. Because it's not until they're going through enough pain that they're going to choose to actually make some changes in their life. And because of that, average people think about a day when they can stop working and maybe they can just sit around and watch TV and retire comfortably. Whereas the rich can see money through what it is and what it is not, and that requires using logic. And because they understand how money works, it provides opportunities for them. It gives them options. If you've ever had an emergency fund and had an emergency come up, guess what? You have options. When you go to retire, if you have money, you have options. If you have an emergency fund saved and you don't like your job and your boss makes you do something that you shouldn't do, you can leave that job because you have options. Money is just options and opportunity. But if you're unwilling to put your financial life in order, you're never going to have options, and you're constantly going to not be able to pursue opportunities because you don't have the means to do so. And if you're tired of living your life that way, you need to click the link down below. We need to schedule a call, go through your financial situation. You might have some money saved, but you don't really know what to do with it. Let's get on a call and see what we can do to help you out. I'd love to send you some resources so that way you can start doing better in your life and in all aspects of your life, not just financially. Just unfortunately, everything costs money. So if you want any area of your life to get better, I think by focusing on money, it helps almost all of those other areas. And number 10, and I heard this so many times growing up, is that average people talk about or, whereas rich people talk about and. Let me give you some examples. You will oftentimes hear people say, well, I could build this business, but my family is more important to me. So I could have a business that's great, or I can have a great family. Well, I would love to work on my money, but I'm really working on my health, as if they can only do one or the other. And unfortunately, because of this, they then teach their kids how to survive by picking one or the other. Whereas what wealthy people, what rich people do is they say, well, I can have that great family and I can have a great business if I'm willing to put in the effort. I can have health and I can have wealth. And because of this, they teach their kids how to be wealthy by saying and instead of or. Understanding that you can live a and life instead of an or life. So what are the things that you are doing in your life that are limiting you and your prosperity? I would love to know down below which number it is that pertains most to you, if you're willing to share it. And some of the things that maybe you thought were true that are not true. Maybe some of the things that you're going, man, I always thought I could have this or this, but I didn't realize I could have both. If I'm willing to put in the time and the effort, I can have both. And the reason I think partially for a lot of these things is the way that society views it, especially masculinity is under attack right now, being sovereign, being financially well, all of these things are under attack right now. And I want you to ask why. Why do you think it is that they want you dependent, they want you reliant, they want you to come to them for everything that you need? Is that truly how we're supposed to be living our life? Or is that something you're being sold so that you can become a vote? And I think that's really important to understand. You may disagree with me. I'd love to hear that in the comments as well. But before you go, don't forget to smash the like button, hit the subscribe, hit the little bell, do all the YouTube-y stuff. And don't forget, if there's something that I can help you with, I don't have anything to sell you, click down below. If there's something that I can help you with in your life, help you especially become better financially, I'd love to be able to do that. And as always, I will catch you later. Bye.